Welcome to the Digital Marketing Insights podcast, brought to you by Brightside Digital.
Hi everyone, welcome to the show. I'm delighted and really happy to say we have Vanessa on the show today, who's a Senior Data Visualization Consultant. Vanessa, how are you doing?
I'm doing good. How are you?
Yeah, great, thank you. Vanessa, we always start off the same. Can you tell everyone listening or watching a little bit about yourself and your career to date, please?
Yeah, absolutely. So I have been working in data visualization for over 10 years now. And that's sort of across the various mediums, but we'll talk about that. So outside of that, I am a wife and also a mother to my 6-year-old son Carter. I live in a small town in Northern Ireland called Ballymoney, in Northern Ireland. So I've got my pick of beaches, forests, all that. And I'm also an orange belt in jiu-jitsu. So anyone who is not familiar with the belts, that's 7 belts off black. So that's just a little bit about me and what I'm doing with myself.
Love it. And like one thing I have to talk about early, uh, Tech Women 100 winner in 2021. Can you tell me a little bit about how you came to winning that award and for what type of work?
Yeah, so I mean, really, it was around my sort of advocacy of females in technical roles. It's something that I'm really passionate about. Women are massively underrepresented in the tech industry, and I think in the UK, like we're still looking at the that figure of that 17 that women make up 17% of technical roles in the UK, and for me, it's how do there are enough women coming up through, but it's how do we actually retain that female talent in the tech world. And as a female, it's about mentoring other females and helping them feel empowered. And it was kind of interesting, like how it all happened, because I just got this very random message from one of the senior managers I work with, and she had this big lovely paragraph written out of all the things I do to advocate women in technical roles. And I was like, oh, well, that's lovely. What's this for? And basically, that's when I found out I'd been nominated for a Tech Woman 100 award. And yeah, it was one morning I was on a stand up for the project that I was on, and it was one of the other winners. Susan McDonald, she messaged me and said, "Oh, Vanessa, you've been identified as a winner." And I was like, "No, that can't be right." I was like, "I've never won anything." So yeah, it was that was such a humbling moment, and I think what was even more humbling was actually then getting into it and meeting the other women that I was alongside, and like these were incredible women, and it's such a humbling thing. So yeah, it's been really nice, and it's been really nice to be involved in that community as well. And I think it's nice for younger females coming up through the tech world and seeing that, and seeing that that they are appreciated in that world, and wanted. So yeah, it's been really lovely, really really humbling
Yeah, that's
experience.
fantastic. And tell me a little bit more about your campaign work. Is there anything that you're really proud of, or some kind of insights you can give us in data visualization and how you've helped maybe some of your previous work with PwC or something in the past that you're really proud of?
So whilst I can't really talk about sort of specific projects, that I've worked on, in sort of roles and that, it's yeah, I think that, some of the social value stuff that I've been involved in has been massively important to me. And working with sort of big consultancies, and they do some amazing work with different charities. And I know that recently one of the things I'd done in the last few years was with a charity that works for volunteers, and in the medical field. And it was a real rewarding piece of work to do, and we know how important that work is, and to be able to give back in that way, it was really, really nice. Yeah, and it was quite a good one, because I was able to get quite creative with that. And I was able to work with one of my colleagues who's also super creative. And it's great within my role in data visualization, because you have to have a very creative mind. And with creativity, it's like, what you input is essentially what is outputted. And a lot of people think that the creative mind can just spark something out of nothing. Well, that's not true. So I think, it's really the variety of people I get to work with, the variety of clients, and that the kind of sparks that creativity and keeps me going.
And do you mind me asking, how could someone listening, maybe someone that's just leaving university or something, how can they get into data visualization? What kind of skill sets and where can they go to get into such a field?
Yeah, I mean, well, first of all, there's I think it's that problem solving skills, where you are presented with the exam question, and it's understanding that. So if you have that kind of analytical mind, now data visualization isn't analytics; it gives you the tools to enable analytics. But essentially, if you I would advise, if you do want to get into data visualization, learn the tools, get to know the tools. I mean, like any good artist, where they get to know their medium, and that essentially is the tools. It's that, but also understand the theory behind it. Things around data integrity. There's a lot, when we were going through COVID really put data visualization into the fore. Like, and certainly data integrity, and everyone was an analyst during COVID, when they were sort of looking at the oh, look, we've got these peaks and troughs, and so it's so what I would say is, I started out, when I went to university, I did interactive multimedia design, which is very, very useful in what I do, because data visualization is all about making data accessible, and accessible in a way that empowers the user to make those decisions. So how do you make it accessible? You put it into a tool that is accessible to the user. You present it in a way that they can understand. But also, I think if you're going to get into data visualization, I would say really get into it, really understand, as I say, understand about data integrity. One of the things that made me fall in love with data visualization is somebody saying to me, a good visualization will invoke emotion. And that is a very powerful thing. Like, how could a chart get you fired up? But it was when I went to DataVis Live, and I just immersed myself in the environment, and I met so many different people doing so many different things. And I'd seen one of the visualizations, I think was, and apologies if I get this wrong, it was for The Guardian, and it was, about world hunger. And it was like, a child is dying every few seconds. And it was little sparks representing the children. And it was like, do you want to make this stop? Fill out the form below. But as we were watching it, and it was this amazing experience, because I was on this big, it was on this big screen, and I was looking up this big screen. And, as the sparks were representing this visualization, it was just like, I felt that panic. I felt that emotion. And it was kind of that moment where I was like, wow, this is a very, very powerful medium here. So what I would say to somebody is, yes, learn the tools, get to know your medium, but get to the heart of it as well.
Brilliant. And like, to help anyone listening, what kind of tools and what platforms would you be talking about, especially from a digital point of view, I suppose?
Yes, fair enough. Because yeah, I mean, like data visualization is so that you can do it in any medium, and some of the most effective visualizations I have seen have been just pen and paper. If you look at some of like Georgia Lippy's work, it's all hand drawn. Stephanie Posovek's work, all hand drawn, incredible stuff. But I would say from a sort of digital point of view, you want to start off in the kind of tools like Power BI is massive. You can download that very very easily, and it's free. You can get a version of it and just start messing about with data. Tableau as well, very easy to use, very intuitive. Click, I started off as a ClickView developer and I moved into ClickSense. And yeah, also like those are the kind of the big three tools, to use for data visualization. But what I would also say is, start experimenting with other things. Like our team, actually, my old team used to do this thing, this data viz challenge, where we'd get a data set and it's like a data viz makeover, and we would all challenge ourselves to same data set, just how many interpretations of it can you make, how many visualizations can you make out of it. One week there were two guys that because we were doing one on carbon footprint, and they made their visualization out of matchsticks. So the it was bizarre, but it was so effective at the same time. And I can't imagine what reaction they must have got when they went into the shop to buy 8 boxes of matches. But it was so creative. And yeah, so I would say, two things from the digital perspective, the likes of Power BI. Also, you want to think about things like wireframing. Adobe XD is a very useful tool as well. So yeah, I would definitely, those would kind of be the big things. So, you've got your likes of your Power BI, Click, Tableau, they're your fundamentals. Obviously, depending on the data you're working with, there might be a certain, bit of transformation cleansing. Alteryx is also a good tool as well. So definitely those would be the things I would get
Brilliant.
into.
And then let's talk like APIs. Do you then kind of, let's say someone says they want to bring in their socials, or obviously Power BI is probably more Excel and their data from checkout points or all these different things. Is the API a lot of the hard work in data visualization, or is it actually presenting the actual graphs and ways to read the data?
Yeah, so where I've seen APIs done in the past is more around those custom visualizations. And in my day to day, we don't do an awful lot of custom visualizations because there's just not the demand for it, when we're thinking about a client's regular reporting. But with the sort of custom visualizations, you'd think more towards, a kind of a click mashup where that is click elements placed into a website, and using an API then to call that. So it's definitely on the horizon. More and more clients are asking for that. But I think what the sort of the problem that we face with sort of custom visualizations is then that maintenance. So yeah, I think obviously with these things with our clients, it's about need and about establishing a use case. So I haven't seen a lot of it, but I know it's on the
Yeah.
horizon.
Well, like I know from my personal point of view, just GA4 and the transition in Google Analytics, everyone's now looking at Looker reports and trying to digitally get more work in that area, trying to get kind of real time reporting. I suppose is the big way of putting it. It's I think
Yeah.
now the latest transition is them everyone's moving away from spreadsheets and downloading into Excel and doing forms and stuff. Now it's all about real time reporting, and that's where your Tableau and Power BI comes in, especially as well, which is brilliant. Is there anywhere where you go for new information, Vanessa? Is there any tips you can give everyone around where you can go to learn more about data visualization, I suppose.
Yeah, so I'm a member of the Data Viz Society. That is a it's a UK based organization, but we do have some global members. And I think that's always a good starting point, is just being in that community and having that discussion. You know, when you're obviously you're working full time, it's kind of hard to then find the time to go and do some research. So I would leverage community as much as possible. And, you know, I do consciously set up time with other practitioners outside within my work, but also outside my work. Um, to you know, just share ideas and, you know, have you heard of this technology? Or and I would always say, you know, stay current. Where there's the option of doing a bit of training, LinkedIn Learning is always a good resource. And yeah, just very clear on your objectives, and where you want to go, and that changes all the time. You know, life gets in the way. I would say refresh those objectives, have a look at then what you can do around that. But I would say immerse yourself in the community. That would be my advice.
Brilliant advice. And yourself for a second, Vanessa, is there any way you're looking to upskill into it, and why, maybe in your area in data?
Yeah, I mean, I mentioned it earlier. I would love to do more custom visualizations. I am desperate to get to use D3. It's just so cool. I Yeah, it's and it's interesting though, because you know, I mentioned custom visualizations before, but we find more and more with clients that maybe some of those more custom elements don't meet accessibility requirements. That's something I really want to get into a lot more. I mean, when you think about the heart and soul of data visualization, it's about making it accessible. So I think that it's very important then to really understand that a bit more. And certainly, you know, when we're thinking about users who are maybe neurodiverse, because that's an area that hasn't really been looked into very much. And so, you know, it's kind of two things. I want to get into custom visualizations. I want to use D3, but I want to understand a little bit more on how to design for accessibility needs, and particularly that sort of neurodiverse group.
Yeah, really well said. And looking at the digital industry as a whole, it's kind of linked to your last question, but is there anything that might be coming that you're looking at and you're thinking, oh, this is going to change or help yourself out loads?
Wow. Good question. Yeah, I mean, I can only reinforce what I've just said. You know, I want to understand a little bit more about you know, accessibility. The world is changing. You know, it's becoming more fair, it's becoming more accessible, and I want to be right in the middle of that.
Brilliant. And lastly, Vanessa, we always end the show on the same question, which is, if you could bottle up one personality trait that you have yourself that you could pass on to others, what would it be?
It's funny, right? Because whenever you sent me through the list of questions, I was sitting in my best friend's kitchen and I read out the last question, and we both said the same thing at the same time. We both said sense of humor. I I care about things, but I cannot take it seriously. I can take nothing seriously. I will find a joke everywhere. And anyone who knows me who's listening to this will be like, yep, you know, trust Vanessa to crack a joke. So I would say my sense of humor, ball up, pass it round. Do not take yourself too seriously.
Brilliant, brilliant. And that's it. Like, in terms of reaching out, if anyone wants to contact you, Vanessa, how can they get in touch? I'm sure there's a lot of people that want to know about data, especially at the moment.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'd love to hear from you. So yeah, hit me up on LinkedIn. That's probably the best way to go about it. So yeah, just search for me, Vanessa McIntyre, and yeah, you'll find
Love
me.
it. Vanessa, thanks so much for being on the show. And thanks everyone for listening, watching, everything else.
Thank you.